welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Hobby Ramblers, featuring Mr. Tommy. Mr. Tommy, would you like to introduce yourself to our dear viewers? I don't think many of them know you.
Probably not. I'm a pretty small creator. I'm Tom. I go by Knickknack Minis on Twitch. Please give me a follow. I desperately need it. I also have a YouTube channel under the same names. Just call me Tom. I paint. I stream painting. I do tutorials. I answer questions. We mess around a little bit, have some fun. Love to have you, and especially if you're new or if you have any questions about 3D printing, painting, whatever. I'm always happy to chill out and answer those questions with you.
Yep.
And I'm so happy to be here today with both of you because this is super cool. I've never been on a podcast like this before. In my academic days, I was on podcasts, but this is the first time I really get to nerd out and talk about the hobby with some cool folks. So this is great.
Well,
thanks
that's
for having me on.
awesome.
Yeah.
And I can attest to this man's skill and talent.
Yes.
He paints like a son of a bitch, and his 3D miniatures are chef's kiss.
I watched one of your streams like a couple of days ago to give you a bit of research. Is to know who we're letting on the show, and it's just like
I'm surprised you let me on then.
Who is this fella? Like,
Yeah.
checkbox, is this man a neo-Nazi? No, okay, cool. Is this man sexist? No, okay, cool. He's on the show. It's fine.
I try to do the
We're
opposite
good.
of those things.
We have a very low bar on this show. It's basically...
Be as open and welcoming as possible is my philosophy for this. So. And have as much fun as possible.
Yeah, man.
Yep.
Yeah, man. Oh, man.
That's a lot of why we do what we do. Trying to open up the community and give really a global perspective that it doesn't matter where you are in the world, because Bill's in Singapore, you and I are here in frosty Canada, and we all love the same tiny little plastic fellas and rolling those cubes.
I'm freaking in Singapore being the ground pounder here, going like, get into wargaming! Life is not just about grades! God damn it! Smack.
Enjoy your dice rolling.
Oh man, alright. So let's move on to the first prompt. So Tommy, like, how did you get into Warhammer, or like just the hobby in general?
Yeah, I got into Warhammer when I was like 12 or 13 years old. So in like the late 90s, early 2000s. And there was like a hobby store in Kingston where my dad worked. And I just went in one day and I saw these really cool models. They turned out to be Eldar, when they were called Eldar. They were Eldar Guardians. And some very nice folks there, helped me pick them out. My dad bought them for me. We bought some paints. I started painting. Got really into it after that and painted for a number of years. And then when I went to university, I kind of fell out of it. I picked it back up, I think, in 2017, 2018 with, what is it called? Where the Plague Marines came out. I was a huge fan of Plague Marines.
Oh, yeah.
I had a huge Plague Marine army.
Dark Imperium. Dark Imperium. 2019.
Oh, that
2019.
It was pure dopamine into my brain. I just saw it and I was like, I simply must. And so I got back into the hobby. I started painting again. I really liked the Death Guard. I had so much fun. And it just kind of went downhill from there because like I kept painting. I decided when the pandemic started to start streaming because I just really felt that like there was this whole new hobby world out there of like YouTube videos and tutorials and podcasts and people talking about it like your fine selves. And I wanted to sort of get into that and share what I'd learned and just hang out with really cool people online. And I did that. It's a lot of fun. It's so surprising how like welcoming and nice this community is. Like I don't think I've had any really negative experiences at all. Everyone I've met is super charming and everyone is like unironically interested in what you're doing. And so I wanted to put a little bit of positivity out there as well and just sort of share the things that I'd learned. So I'm on Twitch doing that now and I have a lot of fun.
Yes. Me and Molly will be on Twitch soon.
And,
We're going to be...
it's a lot of fun watching them.
Yeah. Like, so...
I do try.
Link in his Twitch will be down below in the descriptions. Me and Molly will also be like on Twitch soon. We are going to be putting up like very hard-hitting, very adult, like rated, debates on the hobby.
Yep.
There. You're
Yeah,
talking.
discussing some of the more nuanced and difficult subjects that come with our greater hobby community, as well as
Politics!
discussing things with hobbyists and content creators who come from a diverse background. So a chance to kind of give as much of a voice to as many of us who, you know,
Yeah.
love little
So
roots.
yeah.
Love them.
So obviously, as the hobby community grows, more and more people get into it, and so it's inevitable that we get different types of people coming into the hobby, and like obviously different types of people don't gel well with other types of people, and sometimes you get friction, you get politics coming into it. Sometimes maybe it's like sexuality, maybe it's like that
Gatekeeping.
kind of thing. It's a lot of just like messy things when the community starts growing and you get people going off into different factions. So our aim with that was just to put a spotlight on that and basically to have a discussion on it so that we can get like a view from both sides and see what's
Mm-hmm.
going on, and people
Well,
can.
like kind of
Uh,
a focus on the commonalities throughout hobby, as opposed to the idiotic, minute differences between those who roll dice.
yeah, yep. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
a it's
yeah,
a it's a different show than our YouTube stuff because that's gonna be.
yeah, yeah. It'll be a little more like fuck shit, goddamn.
Hey, that suits Twitch pretty well. That's what I do.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah,
does.
yeah.
It does suit Twitch pretty well.
Yes, it does.
I,
Yes, it
I,
does.
you know, you're just live and you just have bad opinions about movies and stuff like that. And it's fine. You let chat roast you. That
Yeah,
sounds
yeah,
awesome, though.
yeah.
I can't wait. Let me know when you guys are live. I'll absolutely tune in and
Yeah, yeah.
egg you on from the chat.
Absolutely.
Back me
Yeah,
on. It's just like,
God.
God damn it, Bill's such a right winger, and I'm like, God damn you, man. It's funny because like me and Molly are actually from different halves of the political spectrum a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm definitely further left of center. I'm a big fan of my boy Jagmeet Singh. Think he's a good dude. Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
Orange forever. Bill is more
Right of center.
neoliberal,
I,
like
I'm very much right of
just
center.
I'd say just right of center.
I'm right of center in the fact that I don't care what you do in the privacy of your own home, and I don't really care what you do as long as it doesn't hurt anyone, and also you're not trying to convince me to do the same thing.
I think it's nice. You know, everyone comes to this hobby from a different perspective, and I think
Very
ultimately,
much.
as long as we're all having fun and being respectful, and you know, people's good time looks different, but as long as we're respectful of each other, I think that's totally fine.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's nice that you know a hobby like this can include as many diverse people as it does, which is awesome. You know, like I get a lot of people coming to my chat or you know talking in some of the videos that I put out that you know, these are things that I might personally disagree with, but it's awesome to have this sort of middle ground where we can just roll dice or talk about painting. I think that that's really nice. I do like
Very much.
the yeah, and I like the attention you pay to you know you mentioned gatekeeping and stuff like that. There's some discourse out there that likes to pretend that doesn't exist and that it's like a super welcoming, perfect hobby. But I
Yeah.
think paying attention to the forms of gatekeeping that happen is really important because
Yeah.
while it is one of the most welcoming places I've ever been in, it definitely you know it has its rough edges as well.
Yep.
And paying attention
Mhm.
to that is part of sort of like having a healthy discourse about this hobby that we all enjoy.
Yeah. I mean,
Absolutely.
we took a lot of inspiration from like a lot of the video game journalist shows that do a lot of that kind of like discourse as well, like Total Biscuit like used to talk about that a lot. So I took a lot of inspiration from him as well to maybe like hey, let's start doing this and let's start incorporating it because I think that as the hobby and the community grows, like we are gonna need to talk about this a lot more because this is gonna come up a lot more. So we need an outlet for it
Yeah.
and to discuss it and whether like as a community whether we find this acceptable or not because well we've got to talk about it when best to talk about it now rather than later when it becomes a big issue.
I agree.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, we
And
don't.
I guess to segue from gatekeeping, we can kind of start talking about some of the stuff that you do, Tom.
Yes, let's do that. Yeah, let's
Because
talk about
the
that.
main reason we wanted to bring you on is to pick your brain on the dreaded, the controversial 3D printing.
I don't think it's that controversial, but I love talking about it. So when you mentioned it, I was like, oh, this is amazing. Yeah, I'd love to do that. It sounds really cool.
Like, holy moly! Like, I have seen, like, I think from the perspective of a former GW manager that has been in the company recently, I have seen like the stupidest arguments for like against like 3D printing, and I'm like, I've just like, I just remember when like airbrushing first came out as a thing, and it
Oh, yeah, and it
I know
reminds
was
what
me
you're
a
saying.
lot of
cheating.
that. Yeah, I
Yo,
remember
that's
that.
cheating.
Yeah, that's
If you
oh,
if you thin your paints, that's cheating, bro. You
yeah,
can't
I
do
would.
that.
Yeah.
It's got to
Yeah,
come right
Yeah,
out of the
straight
pot.
from the pot. You got to use your nut stack, nothing else.
gotta use your
Exactly.
fingernails, and it's like I just remember that. I just get like flashbacks of that, and I'm like, this is gonna be like a airbrush moment. Like at some point, it'll just become like an airbrush moment where it's gonna like tip over and it's gonna be normal. And I just find it hilarious the dumb, dumb, dumb arguments for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think anything new comes out, people get a little defensive, people get a little upset about it. I definitely I had my doubts about 3D printing. I got my first 3D printer last year, I guess, for Christmas. My girlfriend and my parents got together and they bought it for me because I was like, this is something that I've wanted to try, but I don't really know very much about it. I got the Anycubic Photon Mono.
Oh, yep, that's it.
Uh, which is like maybe that doesn't mean anything to some people, but it's like a very basic entry level small printer, resin printer. And I just fell in love instantly. It was so liberating and cool. And I had only painted really GW until then, like Games Workshop miniatures. And I started painting D&D miniatures. I started just
Mm-hmm.
finding some of the most amazing creators on like Patreon and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was kind of like stepping off a cliff and not realizing how far down it went because like I just kept finding more and more and more, and my entire desk now like is just cluttered with 3D prints, things that I'm working on. I've got some alternative rat men. I've actually got some GW stuff over here. One page rules. I
Oh
was just
yeah,
finished
one page
painting.
rules. Yeah.
I just
Oh,
finished painting
no!
some Eternal Wardens. Oh, no, what are these guys? No, that's not Eternal Wardens. These are
The
they're sci-fi faction.
yeah, they're their own like sci-fi faction. They're their
That
own
was so
individual.
cool.
It's
Yeah,
killing
yeah,
me.
one
It
page
They're
was
rules.
like, yeah.
they're
Yeah, I mean,
Animation
samurai.
designers.
They're very cool. I would highly encourage everyone to check out One Page Rules. I'll just shill for them all day. But I had a really good time with that, and I've become hopelessly addicted to 3D printing. I have 3 printers now. I won one off a painting contest though, so that doesn't count.
yeah.
But I bought a larger one so that I could print like tanks and monsters, and it's been very freeing. I think the number one thing that I want to discuss, or like for people if they're watching this to take away, is like 3D printing is incredibly freeing because it allows you to find things that reflect what you're interested in and
Mm.
manufacture them yourself, which is so cool.
Yep.
Super cool.
Also,
Um,
I find
and
that
and
the
customize things
yeah
to your specific tastes. Or in many cases, find alternatives to official miniatures that are either showing their age or just happen to have been sculpted terribly. Because that
Yeah.
happens from time to time.
or you can't get anymore. That's ridiculous. I'm just
Yeah,
like
well, that's a big
No,
one for me. Like a lot of the old Forge World stuff is just gone, right? Like you want a Carastus assault ram, you're either paying like scalper prices or you're getting a potentially shoddy recast, right?
entire armies have been like disappeared off Forge World, and you can't get them anymore. So it's like the only way to
Yeah,
get
the
them is
Elysian drop
basically
groups gone.
like you need to get them off like either like sketchy Russian recasters or 3D printing. So
yeah,
I think it's a bit of a revolution because I find that the Patreon model of like distributing like models and everything is much more consumer friendly. It is so consumer friendly, and
It's
like
very nice.
yeah, and I just see it as like comparatively to like the current model of like distributing miniatures from like manufacturing standpoint. Like it's just like it's so anti-consumer right now, and it's just like this is not right. That ain't right. That shouldn't be what the hobby is all about. That shouldn't be what the like miniatures should be all about. They're just yeah like
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I don't want to come across as like I never paint or do anything with GW. These are my Annihilators.
yep 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 yep
I just finished painting these guys up.
100% real.
Yep, and I 3D printed the base because I wanted them to have like cracked bases, like they're coming down from the heavens and they're blowing up this like
yep
stone thing that they're landing on. So there's lightning and stuff like that. So I 3D printed that because I wanted to have something cool, and I did want to scratch build it.
yep yep
So yeah, you're absolutely right. Like it's not just full proxies, or it's not just it's bits, it's basing bits, it's replacement for out of production models. There's really no limit, or like just like regular things. Like I know people that make casts of jewelry and stuff like that using 3D printing.
yeah
So
yeah
it's not just a hobby. There are actual sort of applications of this outside of that as well. And
yeah
it's such a vast world of really interesting applications and really amazing models. So I had once I started getting into it, I really had a hard time stopping.
yeah 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 yeah
Yeah.
yeah.
Also,
Uh,
huge terrain game changer.
yeah, like
Oh,
Um,
I love 3D printed terrain.
3D printing
uh,
stuff is like so like you can get some pretty like niche stuff. So like this is a table with food stuffs.
Oh, that's so
yeah.
fun.
Yeah,
I see like a turkey.
yeah, like a turkey, like a little bit of wine in there,
That's
some
great.
cutlery and stuff like that. So like this stuff, like people don't sell this. Like nobody sells like something anything like that, and you're always gonna be wanting that like kind of like weird and wacky things, like just for like D&D or like if you want to make a like a fantasy RPG, and you want like something
Or
that
even just a in-depth diorama project.
exactly, even just for basing, like yeah. Like I just find that you can there's so many different applications as you said with 3D printing, and the essentially the sky's the limit. You can build your whole army out of like 3D printed stuff, or you can just put bits and bobs and like do upgrades and stuff like that just to make your army your own. But I
Yeah.
think that like the current pushback right now in terms of like the how companies are dealing with 3D printing, it's either like one way or the other. There's no middle ground, which is very telling.
It's
Like
tough because what 3D printing essentially does is change the mode of production from a company who's casting the resin, designing the miniatures, designing the pieces, and it shifts it to the consumer where we're just going to design things and make it so that they work, and then you
mm-hmm.
have the production method at home.
Yep.
For me, that's amazing. I love that so much. It's
Yeah.
not for everyone. There's a saying that's bandied around a lot, which is like 3D printing is its own hobby, separate from
Mm-hmm.
miniatures. And I agree and disagree. It really depends on how technically minded you are. If it's going to be a hobby that you don't enjoy or that you do enjoy,
Yep. Yep.
because like the printing process, like queuing up a file, supporting it, putting it in the printer, and getting a finished model,
Mhm.
it is a process. Like it's a thing you have to learn and master, just like anything
Yep.
else. But it feeds so nicely into what we do as hobbyists that I have a hard time seeing it as totally separate. It's a separate set of skills that you need to learn, but once you
Yep.
master them, you can get amazing, amazing results.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like if you were getting into this because you are really interested in printing off some characters for your D&D campaign, I think that this is like perfect for you because you can craft some really interesting and unique stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I don't really see that as being separate from what you're actually doing. It's a component of it.
Yeah. And of course, it
I
Very
hope
really
that
much
makes
so.
sense.
yeah. Of course,
Yeah,
like
it makes total sense.
as 3D printing like new 3D printers come out, and I'm seeing like the new resin printers coming out. Right, they're more plug and play than anything else. There's they're getting easier and easier just to level everything and like to troubleshoot everything. Like the longer 3D printing is going for, like the more resources you have, and the more YouTube channels there are out there going like, how do I troubleshoot this thing and that kind of thing. So
You bring up a good point, which is the community is super helpful.
yeah,
If you have a problem, if you have a problem with your 3D printer or 3D printing in general, people will help you. And most of the time, they will do it without being sarcastic, which is nice. Just in general, I have had 3D printing issues that I have not been able to solve by myself just through basic troubleshooting. And I've gone to Discords like Atlas. Atlas support Discord is amazing.
Yep.
And YouTube videos showing you how to replace whole components of your 3D printer. So to give you some examples, the LCD screen of resin printers, it will fail eventually. It's just a component that can't last. It's a disposable component.
Yep.
And replacing it is literally as simple as tearing the tape off, pulling the old screen out, putting the new screen in, putting the tape back on, and plugging it into the motherboard of the printer, right? And so it's very empowering from a consumer perspective because you're repairing your own stuff, you're learning how things work. That can be a little intimidating, but I promise it's no more intimidating than like your remote breaking and you having to change the batteries, basically. It's just another aspect of that.
Yeah. So if like basically to those people, I say like when they say like 3D printing is like incredibly technical. You have to learn how to do stuff. You have to like learn how everything works. And I'm like, okay, like look what we have in our pockets right now. We literally have a little like supercomputer. What was amounted to like a supercomputer in our phones right now, and 20 years ago this was not possible, and this was like something highly technical, and like people in high up government shady rooms were the only ones that had access to this kind of tech. So don't go telling me that you can't learn a new technical skill because everyone's doing it every single day.
Yeah, and I'm not. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Molly.
Oh, I was just going to say, and the technology is only going to get more user-friendly, more compact, more affordable as time goes forward. Like, I can even think a couple of years back when 3D printing was first making its big splash, like, printers were going for like 10 times what you can get a good one for now.
The prices come down pretty spectacularly.
Pretty spectacularly.
To give you an example, like one of the Anycubic monos that I have is about 200 Canadian dollars on sale-ish, so you can get it around that price mark, and it's a good deal. Yep. Convert that to whatever currency you have. That'll depend whether or not it's available out there or not, or available in your region or not. But it's a very, very affordable investment, right? Like $200 Canadian is about the price of one Games Workshop box. And I can attest that I've gotten a lot more use out of my printer than I think I would get out of that box. So for me, it's a good investment.
Yeah, I think
100%.
I think 3D printing is going to be like the only thing that 3D printing has to basically the big hurdle of the 3D printing that a lot of people have is basically like I think it's the smell. At least for me, it's definitely the smell. And that's about it. Like as soon as they come out with some sort of like odorless like resin, like completely odorless resin, that would remove a lot of like the grievances I've seen people have about like having 3D printers in their homes or like even in the living room.
Or just certain space requirements that not everyone has access to, right?
Yeah,
totally. The space requirement is something I get a lot.
Yeah. I find the space requirement is wholly dependent on the smell. Just not having to deal with that. It's just like as soon as the resin technology comes out, where like there's a resin out there that smells like lilacs and like chocolates, we're golden. We're golden.
Absolutely. To give you some context for the smell, like 'cause that's a real thing, and I get that a lot. If you're considering a 3D printer that is resin based, it does smell. It doesn't stink. People say stink, and that's not true. Different resins smell to different intensities. I have 3 of them in this room at this moment, and I have a air purifier going over here. That's mainly for peace of mind. My girlfriend doesn't complain about the smell of the resin. She complains about the smell of the isopropyl alcohol you need to wash the prints in.
Yep.
And that's a real thing. Isopropyl does stink. It stinks like alcohol. You can use alternatives like water washable resins, or you can use denatured alcohol, essentially paint thinner, if you wish to. But definitely, I think the smell issue affects different people to different degrees. It's a little bit overblown, in my opinion, but certainly it's a thing that's out there. I did have a sub of mine on Twitch who bought his first resin printer. He was really excited about it, and he's like, "I love it, but it does kind of smell bad." And I asked him what resin he was using. He's like, "I'm gonna name names because I've had this experience as well. But Anycubic resin smells more." And I said, try getting the frozen ABS resin. I use that. I noticed no smell. Or the Elegoo ABS resin. I also use that. So from personal experience, I can attest. That doesn't smell very strongly at all either. So there's definitely an element of troubleshooting there, right? Like you need that insider information. But if you're considering it, post on the forums and say, I'm new to 3D printing, what should I get? And you will get so many people with opinions and reasons as to why you should do this or that. And just explain what your parameters are. I live in a small apartment, or I can't stand the smell, or I want to do this. I want to print these things. Like I want to print tanks. I want to do this. I want to do that. That's going to allow people to give you feedback that will be really helpful to you. Like the smell thing, get these specific resins. I noticed no smell, but your experience may differ. I want to print tanks, get maybe a slightly larger resin printer, because otherwise if you get a small one, even though it's more affordable, you'll be printing twice as often because you'll need twice as many parts. I could talk about this a lot, so you guys are going to have to cut me off. But
no, it's good. It's good. Like we've got plenty of time.
Yeah, go. Preach to the masses.
Yeah, exactly. But you put me on this pulpit, and I can just go to town.
Because like
go.
Yeah, we've had enough people go in and come to me and go like, video printing is the devil's work, and I'm like, sure there, Mister You oldie like pauper prince.
It's definitely not the worst.
I've also encountered, unironically, the opinion that 3D printing lessens the hobby because it is more cost effective. So there does seem to be a vocal minority in the hobby that thinks if you can't afford G-Dub, you don't deserve G-Dub. And to those people, I say,
I have encountered that. I have encountered that as well, working at GW, which is not from GW staff, but from customers, from a select few customers, which is very odd. Because like, if I as a staff member don't feel that, I feel it's very uncomfortable that you feel that as a customer.
Yeah, as a consumer.
As a consumer, like I as an employee don't feel that, but you and a consumer feel that. Something's wrong there. Something's happened there.
There was a good comment I saw a while ago that said like when your identity becomes a brand, anything that impacts that brand becomes an impact on you. And there's an element of, I think, sort of rightfully so, like elitism, because these are very expensive toys. And if you have a lot of expensive toys, that's a way of showing off. And so I understand intuitively why someone might be a little bit upset about 3D printing, sort of leveling this cost playing field to a degree. But I also think that it really depends on why you come into this hobby and what your perspective on it is. Like, do you want as many people as possible in it? Because that's going to make all the games more fun, increase the diversity. You know which side I'm on, obviously. I want as many people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
because I want more opponents.
Yeah, both me and Molly, like, we always encourage people to come in and try the hobby out. Like, it doesn't have to be Warhammer 40k. It can be, like, Malifaux. It can be anything else. It can even just be, like, picking up a Gundam kit and, like, seeing how you go with it. But, like, we're all, like, we want people to try it out and see what happens, because I find that the biggest trap I feel that a lot of people think about the hobby is that it's a big time sink, and I think that they're thinking about the hobby in a very
kind of finish liney way, which doesn't really translate over to the hobby overall. Like, no project is ever 100% done. You're always going to want another addition to your army, even if it's like you've got your perfect list, everything's balanced, your vision has been realized, and then you're like, I want 3 more guys on bikes.
Yeah, but
Everyone
not
feels
just
that.
that, not just that. Like
Everyone.
I just find it very, very humorous that it's just like you speak of the hobby like it's a waste of time, like almost like a time sink. But how much time do you watch YouTube videos a day? Like how many hours do you sink into YouTube videos? How many hours do you sink on Netflix or Disney Plus a day, a week, a month, a year? And
Yeah,
then you start
or
seeing
even
like
something similar to what we do, but doesn't have a tangible end result. I guess video games.
yeah,
Like how many people sink hundreds of hours into very immersive RPG video games that get you have a wonderful, wonderful like storyline. There's a lot of emotional connection. It's a total entertainment experience. But when you're done it, you don't have anything. Like there's not a physical reminder of that process. Where with miniature painting, at the end of it, we literally have a keepsake of that process.
yep. As you can see by Molly and me, there you go. There's a physical keepsake right there.
Yeah. Mine aren't on shelves at the moment. They're all in a closet over there. But absolutely.
Yeah.
Um,
That,
yeah, I think a couple thoughts from what you just said, which is really true. I have a really hard time with other hobbies now because I don't get that tangible feedback of the effort that I've put in the form of a model that I really enjoy. And I think that for me, I love the painting process. I love painting. I love painting more than playing the game, but there are legitimately some people who just hate painting. They think it's a total chore. And
Mm-hmm.
I would invite those people to change their perspective on that and
yep.
say it is a meditative process that you can learn to really enjoy.
Yep.
But I'm not going to force anyone or say that that's a wrong opinion because they may simply not enjoy it.
Exactly.
Luckily for you,
Exactly.
there's lots of people out there. You can either pay to paint your minis or just paint them to tournament standard. It's totally fine.
Yep. Yep.
But
Mm-hmm.
everyone comes to the hobby for different reasons. I came for painting. Some people might be like, I just want big blobs of Tyranids, right? Like I don't really care how
Yes.
what's standard exactly, right? And I
Three
think that I want to
colors.
be yeah. I want to be welcoming of those people as well who are not interested in the hobby for the same reason that I am, but we can still meet in the middle, right?
Yep. Yep.
Because I've legitimately talked to people, and like I think that's crazy too, right? Like I get so much enjoyment from painting these things. It's a meditative process for me. It's a process where I can see my progression in terms of growth
Yeah, I
and
can
learning.
definitely agree with you there.
Yep.
There's just a huge sense of accomplishment when you achieve a new technique. Um, and, like you pull it off after trying and adjusting and trying and adjusting, and boom, your
Yep.
object source lighting's there, and you're like, holy shit, I did it.
Yep.
And it just looks
Like
great, yeah.
like I would
Yeah,
encourage like anyone and everyone to try out all three aspects of the hobby and see how they get along with it. Like the building, the painting, and the playing, because you never know because I like me and Molly know because we worked in like the in game shop before. So many people put up so many barriers when it comes to like getting into the hobby, like whether it's I'm not a patient person or I'm really bad at art or I don't have a steady hand or I have anger management issues and I'm like, oh, perfect,
I'm gonna
you'll be great
smash
for
my
this.
miniatures.
I'll be like, oh,
it's like
perfect, you'll
as
be
long as you
amazing.
only smash 1 in 50, you should be okay.
No, I'm like, oh, this is perfect. This is a meditative hobby. You're gonna love this.
Yeah,
But
and a big selling
it's
point I used to do with parents who were, a little wary of this strange shop full of like monsters and genetically engineered superhumans. That you learn your core math skills doing the game because you have to learn basic addition, subtraction, and multiplication in order to write army lists and play. Um, Fundamentals of art are baked into learning the hobby. You learn the basics of color theory, You learn all the
And
base
English skills.
fundamentals that you want to. So sorry.
English comprehension skills. That's a really big one because you read a lot in this hobby. You read a lot.
Oh yeah, and read to the bottom of the paragraph because there's probably one sentence that completely changes the perspective of the rest of that paragraph.
Yeah.
That's super. I never thought of it that way, to be honest. And you're right, because a lot of those rules are written in almost like legalese. Like they're a set of rules that all work together, and you have to pay attention and comprehend what you're reading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never worked in sales like that before, so I've never had to do that. But that's super interesting. I've wondered what I've learned just through osmosis of doing that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I find that I do find that a lot of like the younger generations that do come into the hobby, I find are a lot more less screamy, than their non-hobby counterparts. And I do find that is a very positive aspect of the hobby. It's like, yep, kids screaming less. I like that.
Yep. Nice and
Yep.
concentrated.
You have to be patient, and if you roll badly, you can't lose your temper. It sucks when you roll badly, but you learn to manage your temper that way.
Yeah. So
Sometimes it's
also,
amazing when you roll badly when it causes a hilarious cinematic moment.
Yeah,
like
and that's something like D&D does that as well, right? Like, I think it helps kids turn the idea that like rolling badly isn't strictly speaking a defeat, because you then work with your opponent to make it something fun.
yeah, but also it's you learn a certain level of respect. So of lose gracefully, but like be a gentleman about winning, because it isn't just like some unnamed avatar online. It's an actual person in front of you, and if you're gonna act like that, okay, I mean they have every right to not play with you again.
And ideally, you want to play with them again,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
It's something ongoing, right? They may have another army. They may want to rematch. I think that's something that
Yeah,
any kid
Uh,
could benefit from learning from.
yeah, and
especially.
developing friendly grudges with members of your local gaming group can be awesome. Where like you start modeling like your bases with like traded dead bits from each other's armies. We've all done that. Or like specifically start tailoring your list to start playing against your friends.
Yeah. I think in my local game shop we have a friendly grudge where we're trying to get the tallest characters like on bases, and basically we're all trying to make the Great Tower of Pisa, and we're all just like stacking more shit on our bases to get the taller and taller and taller. To a
So the
point where
almighty tallest is proclaimed.
yeah, I've got like a Tyranid Prime that's like the height of an Imperial Knight now, and some dude has like a orc orc war boss on a bike, and he's doing like a wheelie on one up, and like he specifically did that wheelie so that he could be just a slight bit taller than my Tyranid Prime. Like, god damn it!
Yeah, and
That's
stuff
super
like
fun.
that is fantastic.
Like, god damn it!
Like community-based competitions.
Yeah.
Friendly ways to kind of cajole and push each other into doing new things, trying new visual techniques with our miniatures, or even just batshit army lists that may or may not work brilliantly.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, jank army lists are always fun to play against. Or like when you're both
Super
figuring it out. There's a place for like really like high like meta things, and some people really
like math
enjoy.
hammered out. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And some people love breaking Magic the Gathering as well,
Oh yeah.
right?
Oh,
Like
Yeah.
some people like to play and they're like, how do I break this current meta? How do I play something totally broken that no one can beat? And that happens in Warhammer as well, and that's totally fine. It's
Yep.
not my thing, but there's also people who like to play themed decks in Magic, or who like to just have fun and role play and whatever. And that's much more my speed. Like
Yeah.
really competitive stuff, it sucks to get blown out in a game that can take several hours to play. So I really think that like coming in from like a narrative perspective, or coming in as a casual, like for a casual fun game, that's really going to be the sweet spot for that.
Like again,
I definitely agree.
like
I tend to favor very fluffy armies. Sorry, you go, Bill.
like there is a certain kind of person that wants to get into the meta and stuff like that. And I think that like as long as you're aware of that, and it goes back to the whole like 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 you can be like somebody that engages in the hobby in the meta competitive perspective, right? But don't be a dick.
Yeah.
Nobody is saying like, oh, you're a meta person, go over there. We don't want your kind over here. No, nobody is saying that. But if you're a dick about it,
Or
we
if you
have
just
every right.
crush people, if your list is so optimized that like a regular person just has a very small chance of beating you.
Yeah, understand
Yeah.
what you are. Just understand and
Yeah,
own
yeah.
what you are.
Take down your power level a little bit. Come on, leave some space for the rest of
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, it's like in Magic the Gathering right now. Like I'm teaching a kind of a few people how to play Magic the Gathering, and what I've done is basically because I used to play a lot when I was like back in high school. I take commander decks and make a 50 card standard deck out of them with one copy of every card. And I'm
Nice.
like,
That's a great way to do it.
Yeah.
I am hampering myself with 10 less cards and one copy of every card, and except for lands, and I am beholden to the theme of this commander deck. I got
Yeah.
nothing.
No, that's awesome. I will often take less than optimal units in my hammer lists if they fit the theme or feeling of my army. Often to my own win-loss detriment, but my philosophy has always been not whether you win or lose, it's how much you laugh and make people laugh during the game.
Yep. Yep.
Totally.
Yep.
Yeah.
Back on 3D printing, I just found one of my models, one of my awesome D&D models, which I had a collab with an Australian 3D printing place from Etsy. And they just told me like, hey, paint this to the best you can, and
Nice.
there is my little.
It's a mind flare.
Yeah, it's a mind flayer. So this was the
It's
first
a
time.
sexy mind player.
Yeah, he's so
Nice.
buff. He's like real buff.
Yeah.
So this was the
He goes
first.
to the gym.
Yeah, so this was the first time I've ever like really tried to do like a super silky like fabric, and like yeah, it turned out really well. So I think that like 3D printing has a place in everyone's hobby repertoire, and it should be seen as like a tool rather than like something like,
Mhm.
oh, it's verboten. You cannot touch it.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
So again, like I
Yeah.
really see a lot of like comparisons to the old like airbrush argument we had like 10 years ago, where the community had that 10 years ago, where it's like, oh, it's cheating. You can't use an airbrush. It's like now look at everyone now using
Anyone can do
airbrushes.
a gradient now.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
just so I like as an old veteran, you just see that and you just see it unfold again for part 2, Electric Boogaloo, and we're just like, oh man, it's so funny.
Yeah, I like to. So in my free time, because I'm trying to learn how to paint models with oils,
Mm.
I watch a lot of
Yeah,
like
those are for
tradition.
fun.
Yeah, really, really cool medium to work with, and I end up watching because we don't do a lot of painting with oil paints in the hobby. Typically, we typically tend to use acrylics,
I
and
do, I
there's
do,
this
I
use
do. I
oil
love
paints. I love oil paints and oil washes.
that
I'm a
Yeah,
convert.
Bill's trying to sell me on it. I just own too much fucking
Yeah.
acrylic to plunge right now.
that mind flayer was in oils and a little bit of airbrushing.
Very, very nice.
Yeah.
And it looked really good, by the way. I don't think I said that, but it did look really impressive.
Dankeschön,
But anyway,
Dankeschön.
what I was going to say was this happens in like the real art world where people are painting like portraits. There's this like thing where if you get like a really big iPad or something like that, you can use Photoshop and stuff, and you can get a better idea of colors for your subject, so that when you're painting, you can be more accurate. And there was this push that was cheating because you're not using your eyes to judge colors. But it's like in art in general, it's like whatever tool you have at hand, if it works for you, that's totally fine. If you want to use gouache or oils or airbrush or acrylics, or if you want to 3D print, you want to do this or that, the other thing, if you're interested in the artistic side of it, that is all totally valid. And
Yeah.
whatever
Oh,
reflects you
definitely.
best.
Like use any and all mediums to get to the results you want to use.
Totally.
That was the like, so I went to art school. I think Molly also went to art school as well. Yeah. So like that was I remember like when I went to university for that it was just like that app AI interface was just coming online, and like a few of us were kind of playing around with it in the computer lab because back then like iPads weren't really like a big thing and they didn't have an app for it. So we had to wheel in a computer and it was like a big scanner like rig thing, and it was like and I remember for doing one of my art projects, I just filmed the entire process of doing that, and it was just like, and it was an art form in itself. Like yeah, you could argue it was an art form in itself, just getting
Mhm.
like wheeling in like an actual desktop PC, getting the scanner rig up and running because back then it wasn't just like cameras weren't as powerful as it was today and couldn't pick up like the pigments. So we had to have like a physical like big clunky scanning rig that we'd have to like wire up and like put like cables in and stuff like that. And yeah, so things have changed. Things like need to change, and if it works for you, it shouldn't be like there shouldn't be any like indiscretion about it.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
or preference for one over the other. Over the other. Yeah.
Yeah, like I know professional painters. Like a good friend of mine, Shadow Skull Studios. He's a studio painter in Germany. God damn, like I hate COVID. Like he had a wedding and I couldn't attend it because of that. Um, And yeah, I know for a fact that he's told me once or twice, right? If he's got a really big model and he needs it like really dirty, he'll use his fingers, finger painting.
totally.
But it
Yeah.
works
Why not?
because you get like he was explaining to me like how you get a better texture and a feel for the model, and it's a really personal thing, and you get like a lot more control because like you are literally feeling the medium on your fingertips, and you're like rubbing it in, and it's just like and it just blew my mind. It's like what?
Totally. Whatever gets you there. And I think it's worth experimenting. It's worth painting. It's worth learning what you think is cool. I railed for a long time against the grimdark style of painting. I said, it's just a couple things. It's just streaking grime and a bright pop of color with airbrush. But recently, I've been painting these rat men from Archvillain Games, and I 3D
Yes.
printed
Oh
these.
yeah.
So it's topical. These are like little rat men. They're infected humans that turn into rats. They're not
Mm.
Skaven, legally
Yeah. Yeah.
distinct Skaven.
They
Um,
are
Legally distinct Skaven.
they're the Warhammer 40K Beastmen.
yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
I use streaking grime on them. I think it's a lot of fun, and it's a totally valid tool. And I was a tool for thinking like that was a weak art form, right? There's always something to learn from the way someone else is doing something, and I think it's really valuable to have an open mind, especially when it comes to art.
Oh,
It's why
definitely.
Yeah, oh yeah, oh
it,
yeah. Because
yeah,
it goes a long
there's
way in developing your own like kind of like individual style for your minis and your own paint style.
totally be a sponge. Just pick up everything you can, right? And
Yep.
you're gonna have a great time.
Yeah, yeah,
And you're gonna make friends doing it because people won't think you're a bit of a dink for
yeah.
being mean to them.
A bit of a douchebaggerino.
Exactly, yeah. Like no one wants that guy. Like just be nice. People
No.
paint and put their effort into stuff. If they think it's cool, it's cool. There's something different between that and like if I come to you and I'm like, I want criticism. Give me some actual feedback. I'm trying to improve. And
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you
and
like
legitimate creative criticism or constructive
totally.
criticism, like something that will help build you as an artist, as opposed to just be like, your stuff looks like shit. I don't like
Yeah,
it. You can't paint.
yeah. There's a lot of that. And it's like, that's not really
Yeah.
good criticism. Hmm.
Yeah. And like, your edge highlighting is bad. Learning techniques is also a really important thing to miniature painting as well. And I think some
Mhm.
people get hung up on like they think only about the technique and not about how the technique is applied. Everything's just a tool. So Games Workshop relies really heavily on edge highlighting techniques to sell a style of painting, which is heavy metal.
Yeah,
You know it when you see it, but there are other styles of painting that rely on other techniques a little bit more or use other techniques a little bit differently, but
Yeah,
they're all there. They're always all
yeah.
there,
Or you can
right?
use a
Like,
combination of techniques. Like that's why you need to be a sponge because then you understand when to apply these techniques and when to not apply those techniques. So when I did very like about a year ago, I 3D printed a bunch of like World War One inspired German Imperial Guardsmen, and I came into it going, I want to do a Blanchetsu style, like a grimdark style. But then I
Yeah.
incorporated a lot of lessons from the heavy metal style to take it to the next level and do like a extremely like stark, like ultra highlights with ultra highlights, force perspective,
Highlights
like
highlights only around the edges of things. Everything's got to be
Yeah.
highlighted.
yeah. Well, I decided to go like, okay, I'm gonna highlight only the parts at about a 45-degree angle. So it was like an
Okay. Yeah.
extreme
Yeah.
force perspective, like grim dark style. And once you're starting to be able to combine like those kind of like and it wasn't just like a one layer highlight. It was a heavy metal style like two-tone highlights, that kind of thing. And it was just like that's that's when you start going like, okay, I understand where everything goes. I understand when to use them, when to not use them, when I can get away with certain like techniques and stuff like that. And like yeah, like that's when you start to grow in your hobby. Like and that shows a level of maturity when you're not like, I'm in this camp, I'm in the heavy metal camp.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or just sticking to a specific aesthetic dogmatically. Like that gets boring, right?
totally.
Yep.
It
You
might work
tend
for you. Like, sorry,
it's
there's a distinct look that I always go for when I'm trying to paint fast because I
mm,
know it works.
mm,
But that's something that I rely on, and that's something that I've developed over time and that continues to develop.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah. Sorry, I was just saying like there's an element of like simplistic styles or styles that are going to work, especially if you're speed painting an army or something like that. That's totally
Mhm.
valid.
yep,
But
yep, yep.
when you're what I would encourage you to do, and this is what I do myself, is like I paint something for like the game. I paint like an army of Stormcast, for instance, right over here, and then I'll paint like squads or individual models that I really like. I try something new on, or I really try to push
Yeah.
myself
Yeah.
in a specific way. And that's really where the learning happens. And then you take that back to the army painting and you incorporate it back into that. And you're a little bit more masterful. Good example of this is like NMM, right? Don't try that on an
Oh,
army. Try that on one model, and you're gonna fail. It's not gonna look good, but you're
No,
gonna
no,
learn
bad
from it.
time.
Yeah,
And then it'll
I
get a
had a,
little better, little better, little better. You'll learn where to incorporate it, and then it'll start popping up in larger portions of your collection.
yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
I had like a customer that walked in one time and he wanted to start Necrons, but he wanted to do them all in NMM. And I'm like,
Wow.
oh, buddy, you took the easiest army to paint and made
You
it like
psychopath!
50 times
Yeah.
harder for yourself, and you've never painted before, you say? Okay,
It's like
try.
someone comes in and they're like, Harlequins. I want to do Harlequins. I've never painted before. Teach me how.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Or like,
oh.
I've never driven before, but I'd like my first car to be like a Lambo.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my god, you're gonna crush that thing as soon as it comes out. Okay, cool, excellent. Can I sell you on extended insurance, sir?
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Oh man, yeah.
Um,
So very, very quickly, because we are about 50 minutes in, um, what, Tommy, what concerns you about the hobby?
What
yeah.
concerns me?
Yes.
As a whole, we could talk for a long time. I think my number one concern, and you'll see why we could talk for a long time. My number one concern for this hobby is that it is dominated by one corporate entity, which is Games Workshop.
Hmm.
And I love, and I want to make a very clear distinction here. Is like I love Warhammer, and I do not like Games Workshop, their corporate practices, or the ways in which they are transforming this hobby to be an elite and overly priced, expensive, exclusionary hobby. Because I think that's the opposite of what
A luxury product.
a luxury
Yeah,
brand, the Prada of tiny plastic toys.
yeah, yeah.
I That's a no-no
Me,
for me.
I think me and Molly have been through that
Totally
retail
agree.
workshop where it's just like, think of yourself as the Ferrari of tiny toy soldiers, and I'm like, a bit
It's very
uppity there,
true, though.
aren't we? Considering I've
Yeah.
worked in a Rolex dealership, we're definitely not the Ferrari of anything.
I guess if we're going to talk about it a little bit more, and I don't want to take up too much of your time, I know we're almost out, but the issue is that the more exclusive you make this hobby, the harder it is to get into, and there's no reason for it to be this expensive except for a corporate bottom line and a certain expectation from shareholders that Games Workshop return a certain amount of money to them. And I think it's in the, and you're asking the long-term problems of this, that relationship is totally poisonous to a happy and healthy community that enjoys what they do. And then that's why I want to separate Games Workshop and what they do away from Warhammer, where I see Warhammer as being like a really awesome place of really unbridled creativity, and I see Games Workshop as really being a negative. They hamper that creativity because what they're interested is not that, it's profit, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And this is me being a dirty lefty and analyzing this from this perspective, and I think in a real way it's killed part of my enjoyment.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think even from a righty, it's kind of like, this is too much control. This is too much like market share. This is crazy. There's very few competition for Games Workshop. Once a corporate entity becomes like that dominating in a market, it strangles it. It strangles it for every dime and penny.
It does, yeah. And I see them in the future being very threatened by 3D printing, if we're going to tie this back to sort of why I'm here.
Yeah.
Definitely it's not yet. There's some people who like to come out and say, 3D printing is already killing Games Workshop. And it's like, even though, they had a high during the pandemic, and now they're coming down pretty quickly in terms of stock price. So they've lost about 30% of their stock price over the past 8 months because COVID is ending, and people are backing away from this, in my opinion, very predatory pricing structure.
Yes.
And that's awful for the three of us, right? We want more people in this. We want more people to realize that this is super cool. The fantasy and lore is super fun. We can talk about, I posted this is Argyle Tal here.
Yeah. We were just talking about him earlier today.
Yes, I want one. I want two of him.
I posted him and someone was like, oh, who's that big demon? And I was like, well, let me tell you about Argyle Tal, chapter master of the Serrated Suns, right? I think that part is really cool. I think that Games Workshop itself, though, if it disappeared tomorrow, the hobby would actually get better. It would get way, way more competitive, and it would be a lot of really creative people sort of taking on the mantle of Warhammer and bringing it forward into a new and I think better era. That's the problem that I see moving forward is corporatism, to use a word that you used earlier, corporatism, I would just say straight up, predatory capitalism, really ruining this aspect of the hobby, especially for me. I don't buy from them anymore. It's very expensive. I'll ask for them for gifts if there's a model that I really want. I just got Sigvald, and I'm just very excited to paint him. And it's to say that their products are amazing. Yeah. Sorry, I've been talking like a madman because this is something that's always on my mind as I'm painting.
No, go for it. We can always extend. We're completely happy. We can go overtime. It's all good.
Oh, we're criticizing Games Workshop. We'll give you 3 hours.
We'll give you a lot.
Until midnight.
Yeah,
it'll be the Zack Snyder edition, 4 solid hours of just and GW.
Yeah, if we're criticizing GW on their corporate practices, because we've got two ex-employees right here, right? We'll make a part 2. It's okay.
Yeah. And from our inside perspective, we certainly were very heavily exposed to even then the very predatory thinking process. I remember a distinct transition from outrageous customer service and doing whatever is possible to make the hobbyist excited and frothy and encouraging them to convert and paint and do all the wacky stuff and helping them get the foundation there to selling core games. Sell the core game. That's it.
Yep.
Someone wants to do something off the beaten track, fuck them. Try and sell them the core game.
Yep. So I was in a very dubious position of I saw that change overnight because of COVID, where it's just it went from extremely, I'll say, outrageous customer service to we'll drop the ball. Like, I'll put this out as an open letter to Games Workshop. We fucking dropped the ball on supporting the community during the pandemic. At a time, like a quote from Avatar: The Last Airbender, at a time when the world needed us most, we weren't there. We dropped the ball.
Very-
We fucked up. We fucked up.
Yeah.
And now you guys are paying for it. Like that is not okay. So you reap what you sow. You reap what you sow. You really do. Like
And it's almost like they're like stringing out the rope that they're hanging themselves with at this point, because we've seen prices skyrocket over the last, like, not even 5-10 years, but like 2-3.
oh,
Yeah.
man. So bad.
There's something, you know, you're gonna get a comment on this, and you put it on YouTube, and it's gonna be like, but inflation, right? Inflation is the reason. And I just want to cut that off. Yeah, we're gonna cut that off right now. It's not inflation. GW is not raising prices because of inflation. GW raises prices far beyond inflation over time. Combined with the fact that they have a 40% odd cut off every model that they make. They have a profit margin of about 40%. Don't quibble with me.
It's closer to 60, but
Yeah. It could be, you know, even if it's 10, even if it's 20, like Walmart makes a 2% profit margin.
Yeah.
Companies would literally immolate you for the profit margin that GW makes. It's just unheard of in terms of like what you manufacture versus what you can sell that manufactured process for.
Yeah.
So it's crazy when they're like, well, you know, costs are up, and it's like costs might be up, but like, guys, you are making money hand over fist here.
Yeah.
And this is a hobby that benefits from people being allowed in, not from people being priced out.
Yeah.
And I think we're at that point.
Yeah. Like
Yeah,
they were
definitely.
saying, oh, prices are up. It's like, why? Oh, because of Brexit. Oh, you mean the fact that you have to pay like an import tax now because of like the shipping from China that you're printing the boxes on? Fantastic. Like like you have to think about it, right? You have to think about it logically. Like the production facilities are all in house, the IP is all in house. So unlike Lord of the Rings or Marvel or like even like or is it like Pacific Rim, you don't need to pay like a royalties for that. You don't.
No, because you make it yourself, right?
Yeah.
You're not paying another creative or another company for what you make, and it's just a license to print money at that point. Because like they have people who are interested in even people not familiar with 40K know about Space Marines, right?
Yeah.
They've got this
the term
enormous amount of
Space Marine. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I'm worried about. You asked me what I'm worried about long term. I'm worried about a company that really dominates the space becoming more and more of a problem rather than a cool solution.
Yeah.
Or a cool sort of caretaker. Like I'm okay if, I have to pay a little bit of money for models in order to play my cool game.
Of course.
But really, like they're taking a little bit too much of a chunk out of me each time I want to do something, and so I don't like being part of like an exclusive club of people that can afford to pay $60 for one Captain Space Marine guy. Now, I also have the solution though, which is really cool because this is something recently that's come into my life in the past 2 months maybe, and before I say anything, I'm not affiliated with this company, this group of people. One-page rules. You should be playing one-page rules.
Yes, one-page rules.
Yeah, because it's totally miniature agnostic.
It's a couple things. Maybe someone's not familiar with them out there, but like miniature agnostic. The rules for your faction are 1 page long, totally free, updated frequently, and you can learn the game. I brought my brother in. He played a Bretonian army. My other friend played a Tomb King's army. There are rules for those factions. I played Beastmen. We had a 3-way like slugfest, and it took them 35 minutes to learn the rules and build their force, and we were going. We had beers. It was awesome. I just want to share that with people. Check it out.
Sounds killer.
That is something I've been trying to get my local game shop to take on board because like my local game shop bought like a resin printer and it's just like sitting in the games room going like collecting dust in the corner going like, yeah, nobody knows how to use it. I'm like, I know how to use it. I could probably learn. You want to sell that to me?
Yeah. one-page rules is great because local game stores can still benefit from it because they're still selling the models if you want to.
Yep.
There's also I 3D print my models for these games, obviously, but it's so incredibly freeing to, something we haven't really talked about is the rule set, because that's another core component of how this hobby works. Is like we've talked about painting and printing, and that's kind of over here. That's like the manufacturing side, you can say. But over here is like the gameplay. And I'm going to say this right out loud. I cannot keep up with 40K and Age of Sigmar anymore. Or even
No, the
Kill
rules
Team.
float is outrageous.
Kill Team is so
Sigmar is
complex
slightly
now.
more manageable, but just slightly.
I
Just
saw
slightly,
the new FAQ, and I saw the amount of changes that it had, and I'm just like, I can't keep up. This is ridiculous. The FAQ is almost as long as the freaking rules section on the fucking like 3rd edition like core rule book. It's too much.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't take a Sharpie and like retcon all that. That's ridiculous. It's like, this is way too much. Like,
Yeah.
you want to give me a rule set? Sure, but like,
we've had multiple cases recently where rules have been outdated before the book actually hits the shelf. So you have FAQs coming out for units or factions before you can even purchase the rules for those factions.
They updated. I would like to say, right, for about the 8th time, they've updated the rules for the Sylvaneth trees.
Oh yeah, those trees. Oh man, that's brutal.
They can't decide what to do with those trees, and this is the 8th time that they've been updated.
Because like the whole faction is just fundamentally tree based, right? Like it's impossible to balance them.
That whole battle tome is out of date. Everything has been changed. Like there are certain rule books, like they're now $75 rule books. Out of date.
I think it's we did this in my Twitch stream. We calculated how much it costs if like you just want to find out if you like the game, and it's like play with paper minis, whatever. I don't care, but you just want to find out if you like it. It's like 115, 125 Canadian bucks to get the rule book and the army book.
Yeah.
God forbid if you need to get a friggin' white dwarf in there too, because like the rules are now in white dwarf as well. General's Compendium, whatever. It's too much, and it's such a barrier to entry.
These friggin' $64 tiny rule books.
It's so much. It's so much. And so I hate. I always say that I hate to be super critical and not give a solution. The solution is digital rules that are updated frequently and are inherently easier to balance because they're less minutia dependent.
Yep.
They're less cumbersome. Yeah. Like how do you balance trees when another faction does not have trees at all, combined with Slaanesh, which has like depravity points, combined with Space Marines, which have like special rules, like depending on the phase that they're in.
Individual chapter has to be taken care of. One thing that's driven me away from 40K and back into the loving embrace of the Horus Heresy is the Heresy rules have been sitting very unchanged and solid since Betrayal.
Yeah.
Like 2012, where I had to buy 2 Marine Codexes in 1 year in order to stay on top of my Primaris force, and that genuinely made me mad.
Yeah.
You're like, I just spent $50 on this fucking book. Why do I have to do it again just to tweak the rules? Because like there's this inevitable power creep and rules bloat.
Yeah, and now sorry, go ahead.
And now we're getting a Space Marine Codex version 2.
Yeah, 9th edition 2.0. Now with what's new since then? More Gravis Captain.
More Gravis Captains, a few more vehicles.
Gravis Captain, the Chainsword.
I think the heavy intercessors weren't in the Codex. So
maybe like the Storm Speeder or something. I don't know.
It's quite a few vehicles that like have come out since the Codex came out.
But still, don't do that. Like, or do it the way you used to. Release the rules before the models if the models aren't ready. Don't be so like
secretive.
If it's not in the book, it doesn't exist, kind of, or if there isn't a model for it, there are no rules for it anymore. Because that takes a lot of the style and customization out. Again, one of the things I love about Heresy is like the militias and cults list, where it's like the good old days, and you can just go buck nutty, creating whatever sort of force you want, and
As
your
long as
only
your base
limits are
sizes,
imagination at
as long as your base sizes are okay, whatever you put on
Yep.
top is okay.
Play whatever you want against me as long as those base sizes line up. I'm totally fine. If we're playing 40k or Age of
Yeah.
Sigmar or whatever, I don't
No,
care.
I would say
Fine with it.
30k because in 40k they're really iffy about the height now. Like they're really iffy about heights now. They're crazy
Yeah.
iffy about that. Like
Yeah.
yeah, they're like because of the so because like models of 18 wounds or more can't use the terrain benefits. So they're all about the height now for those kinds of big models, where it's just like the lower you are, if you physically cannot see the thing from the wall, you still can't shoot it. It's like, oh my god, oh my god.
There's so much out there too. Like we're really complaining about a very specific rule set, and I hate complaining about something without offering someone out there who's watching this like, hey, there are better systems out here. You don't have to put up
One
with
page
this.
rules. One page rules.
Play one page rules. I don't shill for them because I owe them anything. Like I legitimately enjoy the way that they've made it so accessible, combined with a miniature agnostic set of armies that are actually fun to play and are relatively unique. Like they have different abilities that some other armies don't, but they're all pointed pretty competitively.
Yep.
They're miniature agnostic, so play with whatever you want. Play with your 3D printed army. Play with your Space Marines. Play with your Perry miniatures. Play with whatever you want. They've got a kill team equivalent. They've got a 40k equivalent. They've got a Warcry equivalent. They've got an Age of Sigmar equivalent.
Yep.
And they're all fantastic. And we haven't mentioned the best part: alternating activations. I go, and guess what, my friend? You can go,
Alternating activations.
and we can have a back and forth, and it's so much fun. There's nothing worse than watching your opponent with like this grim smile on their face just dismantle you in the first turn in like some alpha strike garbage, and you're like, I'm just gonna surrender and go to the bar. Excuse me, you'll see me in 6 hours.
Or if it's like
you know.
in Age of Sigmar, where it's like suddenly they get like the roll of double turn, and I'm like, the fuck?
No. So I really want to state that like I love them because they are fun, not because I want to shill for them because someone's going to get upset with me. But they've invigorated my hobbying in a way that has not existed for a long time because it's fun to play. I don't need to buy books. I don't need to squeeze my friends to play this. It's like I came to my friend's house, I sat down, I was like, I printed out one page, and I was like, here's your rules. Here's your rules. We're gonna set up our armies. We're gonna brawl. It's gonna be a lot of fun. It can be as lore rich as you want, and that's exactly what I've always wanted from my miniature wargaming. I just want to play with my toys with my friends and have a good time.
Yeah.
Laugh my ass off and build cinematic moments and memories.
I would like to propose.
That's what I want out of it.
I would like to propose that like One Punch Rules does provide two solutions for those of you that like are concerned about your local game shops, because I do know that some people are concerned about like, okay, if we go play One Page Rules, we can't go and like play in our local game shops because they only do 40k. Well, you can use any miniatures from them, but also the One Page Rules guys does provide like STLs and also like a discount on their on the web store for STLs. Yep.
They're called the
so
Eternal.
that,
I remember they're called the Eternal Dynasty,
yeah. So
and they are samurai inspired.
It gives the it gives a hobby shop a very interesting like it gives them two options to monetize that. So basically, they can continue to sell the current model range and still like move it towards like One Page Rules, or they can invest in a little bit of training and a little bit of equipment to get a 3D printer and actually have people pay them for the service of printing out miniatures from the One Page Rules, the official miniatures from One Page Rules. and I think that like it provides it's a much better like margin of sales than Games Workshop stuff, and yeah, they have a lot more control, especially since like COVID's still around and like delivery times are just up in the air everywhere. It's like we don't know when those things are coming. So it gives them it gives individual stores and the individual store owners a lot more control over like what stocks do I have, because now they can finally have like a just in time like store.
Yeah, that's definitely. It's actually a literally just in time delivery method. You're right.
Deliver method.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't do that with Games Workshop. They couldn't do that with any other manufacturing miniature company. But now that they can manufacture and they have the, if they invest in that capability, they can provide that service.
No, that's brilliant. Not to mention the fact that it's miniature agnostic means that it could easily be used as like a, lack of a better term, gateway drug into some of the other more established games.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So say you really love the look of Malifaux minis, buy Malifaux minis. Play one-page rules. Maybe you transition over and you start flipping cards. You really like Marines, use Marines. Sooner or later, you're going to be playing 40K.
Exactly.
So there's like a Marine stand-in for one-page rules. I think they're called the Prime Brethren
Yeah.
Brothers.
Yeah. Battle Brothers.
There's the Tau Coalition, but it's spelled TAO, well as, and like it's kind of like a wink and a smirk at like the original things, but like they're legitimately more fun to play. There's the great thing is there's
so much more balanced as well. They're so like
yes. Nothing feels broken. Some things feel strong, but nothing feels like, okay, you're just going to wipe the board with me? Cool, thank you very much.
Yeah, there's no win button combination.
Yeah, absolutely, there's not. It's so much fun. I totally forgot what I was going to say. Oh, yeah, no, there's no training wheels on the way you build your army. It's just purely points-based. So one of the things that I've always loved about, like 40K is, like the White Scars, they're all on, like, bikes and like grab things, and they're flying, they're real fast oriented, but you actually can't build those armies correctly, I guess. Like I'm not really super familiar with them, but in one-page rules, just build them with grab bikes. Just like build them with bikes. It's a lot of fun. And there's no army composition rules against that other than points. They cost a certain number of points. Don't go over the point limit for your game. But just so we're not like overly shilling for them. Play if you like skirmish games. Play Silver Bayonet. If you like Rain in Hell by Vince Venturella and and oh my god and Uncle Adam.
Uncle Adam.
So cool.
It's a really good game. I've got the physical book. I wanted to support them, so I got the PDF and I got the physical book.
Yeah.
I'm gonna carve out a niche here and say like. So my opinion is mostly like rules should be digital, miniatures should be physical. Buy the miniatures, but then you can instantly play the rules. But for games that are just rule sets, buy the rules. Support the creators. They're going to create more awesome stuff. You're going to have more fun with your friends. And for those of you who don't know, the Reign in Hell is literally you are a demon captain trying to take control of hell. And there's rules about how you build these miniatures. Not build them, but it's miniatures agnostic. But then you just fight with your buddy. It's fantastic. It's so fast paced.
And don't forget, right? Like for these creators, right, they usually have a digital rule book that you can buy. And digital rule books, they're like a drop in the bucket. They're like $20.
They're not $75.
Yeah, they're cheap as hell. And it's just like just buy them. And
I'm so sorry. You're bringing this up into my head, and like all the brain gunk that I've had circling up in here, just engaging with this hobby for so long is all coming out. You're supporting actual people. Like they do this either for fun or it's their job. I looked today. It bothered me so much. I looked today. I could not find even credit on Games Workshop website for who sculpts, paints, and develops the minis.
They don't do that anymore.
I looked that out like 2-3 years ago.
Yep, 2-3 years ago.
Did James Workshop himself make these? Like, give credit. This is not your stuff. It was built to your style. But and you have to go on like Twitter and find like you have to know someone. Like I didn't know Karl Kopinski did so much Warhammer art. By the way, follow him on Instagram. He's amazing. And he just started sharing things, and I was like, oh my god, you created some of the most iconic art of my childhood. like
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
Steel
that like
Legion, the
completely
Tau.
boiled my brain.
Yeah,
So
they stopped
and
doing
this sorry,
that, and it was
this
just
is to
like,
tie it in. Support actual artists. Support actual artists.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Buy directly from artists on Patreon. I'm so sorry, Bill. I completely cut you up, but I was
Go
just
for it,
like,
go for it. Yeah. Support
it,
the artists, get everything done. I was there for that meeting. I was like, this is not right. Is this legal?
it's like even movies do it, right? Like, sure, we talk about directors, but like, there's a whole team of people, and it's all at the end of
Mhm.
that super awesome creative thing that they all
Yeah.
work together to create, down to the grips that were involved in it. It blows my mind. It's actually like physically painful for me to think about, like, you putting all that effort into designing these amazing minis, writing this amazing lore, um, and the company just completely disregards your effort. It's
Yeah.
so painful.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah,
I had
like
no more thoughts.
even just like writing the rules down. Rules writers, they need to be they need to be mentioned as
Credited?
well. Credited,
Yeah.
like credited for their work. They really need to, because that's the bread and potatoes of like the hobby right
Oh
there.
yeah.
Like, to a certain extent. And
There was.
I
I
It's
know.
saw
like
someone mention. I'm just gonna
I was
add
just
something
gonna
to
say
that. Go ahead. Go ahead, Molly. Molly, go ahead. I'm so sorry.
no problem. But it's like back in the day, like the best Chaos Codex was the one written by Phil Kelly. Andy Chambers' work in the Realm of Chaos box set and fleshing out that whole stuff, like that was credited and creator driven. Like you could smell Phil Kelly, Andy Chambers, and Tumnus Piernan on stuff.
Yeah,
That was it.
and like, no,
That's it.
100%. But I saw a point that someone made. Like, someone wrote a bad rule book, and like they received death threats, and I was like, okay, that's a good point, but like it's still like their creative work. They should still have some credit. They can put that on their CV or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That was my only like qualifier to that. I still believe they should be credited. I think that was probably a niche case of like it just wasn't good. It just didn't work out for people, I guess. But
I remember that time. It was Matt Ward, and it was just like
It was Matt Ward.
he was a bad rules writer.
I love
It
when
was
you
Matt
guys just
Ward.
know this guy. They're like, oh yeah, no, he was bad.
He's still around the company. I've seen him before, and I'm going like, hey there, you fucked up my
What the
Tunis
fuck was
Codex.
the deep striking Land Raiders, motherfucker? That didn't make any sense.
You fucked up my Tunis Codex, and he was like, yeah, I'm sorry. It's like, are you still hung up about that? You bet you. Don't like
We'll
you,
never forget.
but we're co-workers, so respect you. Like, fair enough. That's more than I get from most people.
I appreciate how much you love Space Marines, but love other things too, please.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, so like I can appreciate that happens, but that also happens to authors. That also happens to movie writers. That also happens to actors. Like, you
Yeah.
can't like
Or definitely with like what we're talking about, the sculptors. Like remember when they like Brian Nielsen and Juan Diaz were like super duper stars of like the early 2000s miniature creation, like or Jess Goodwin was like a rock star essentially as far as design went, and now it's I have no idea who designed the most recent Primaris kit.
we don't know. We don't know. It's like a team of people, and we will never get to know their names unless they retire and go like, I designed that. Like and I was
Yeah.
there. I remember that meeting. I remember that like announcement, and it was just like, and they said like they put out an open call to like all the staff like, oh, do you have any problems with this? And I just put my hand up and like, I have a problem with this. Is this legal? Because this doesn't feel legal at all. Like, and they're like, and their response was like, oh, we get all the artists to sign a contract where like it's a non-disclosure contract. As part of that non-disclosure contract, we don't need to credit them. And I'm like, never ever reveal that to anyone. Never ever reveal
It's
that to
nuts.
anyone, because that is such a scummy move. And I use that word
That's
scummy.
just me move.
Yeah, and I think I had a meeting with HR saying like, yeah, you're using very mean words, Bill, and I'm like, it's true. You guys are being very scummy when you're doing this, and you're putting that in that clause. Don't ever do that.
Yeah. So something that ties into this that I think is really important to say, and I'm sorry guys, I don't have too much more time. My girlfriend is absolutely going to murder me because she's waiting for me to have dinner.
100%.
Go for it. 100%. Yep.
But
Oh
something
yeah,
that,
geez, we've been going a while.
Yeah, we've been
yeah,
going
no,
well.
but this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for having me on, guys. But
No problem.
something that ties into this conversation is the idea that if you don't support Games Workshop, you're not going to get cool miniatures. And that's not true, guys. Like, I don't support Games Workshop very much at all, and I've got simply incredible miniatures that I hope if you go on my Instagram, you go on Twitch, you're going to see me painting some really cool and original stuff.
That's fast. You were working on last night. Like, sweet hungry Jesus, that is a beautiful miniature. Yeah, that's a lady.
These are Greek warriors. They're called Spartan cast.
Oh.
So I'm telling you right now that like you don't need to support this out of some misbegotten idea that if you don't, you're never going to get the cool miniatures that you love. I promise you someone will be there to fill that void. You don't need to support the corporate practices that are currently, in my opinion, not ruining the hobby, but definitely making it harder and harder and harder to enjoy. And I think that's really sad because I want as many people as possible to enjoy these things that I enjoy. I want to share with as many people as possible my love of miniature war games. I'm going to shout out some other ones. So like I said, Silver Bayonet, Frostgrave, Stargrave, the Lords of War game, the World War II historical miniature games, if you like that.
Like Bolt Action or
Bolt Action, that was the word.
Yeah.
Black Powder is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pike and Shot. Yeah.
Rain in Hell, if you like that specific version of specific flavor of miniatures, there's something for you out there, and I really want you to just, if you're just getting into this, or if you're a veteran, just get outside of your bubble and play some of these games. They're so much fun. Oh, Corvus Belli, Infinity.
If
yes. You like Mecha, it's awesome. I really want to try that. Yeah, there's stuff out there for you, I promise. And it's really cool when you get out of your bubble. It's really, really, really cool, I promise.
There's a big wide wargaming world out there. Try everything, do everything. But yeah.
Yeah, don't just go to McDonald's, kids. Try all the fancy restaurants too.
I wouldn't even I wouldn't even say it's McDonald's. Stop going to Hooters. Stop going to Hooters.
Hooters.
Or like
they're taking advantage of you.
Egg salad sandwiches.
It's like those chicken wings are freaking $20. Those are not $20 chicken wings.
No.
At Hooters.
I really can't stress it enough that there's cool stuff out there, and if you search a little bit, get your friends interested in some other stuff, your wallet's going to thank you, and your sanity's going to thank you, because your rule books aren't going to be instantly out of date, which is a real thing that we haven't talked enough about. But I'm sorry guys, I have to call it, but thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you very much, Tommy. I would like to extend an invite if you are hobbying. Feel free to give me a call. I will give you some pointers on like oil paints and stuff like that. I will share you my techniques, and we'll
vice versa. Cross-pollinate, boys.
Yeah. So honestly, thank you very much,
and we would love to have you on again. Certainly, if you want to discuss some of the more nuanced natures of what we didn't get to today, like rules bloat, like we just mentioned, and a creaking bookcase of out-of-date rules or a closet full of codices.
I have a mini library of like rule books. I take dates here, and they read through them, and they're like, "Oh, look at this storybook." It's like,
I would.
Yes,
I would love to, guys. Thank you so much. It's been amazing chatting with you. Yeah, this has been really, really, really cool. I'm so sorry I have to go. I would chat with you all night, but there's food upstairs that's waiting for me. My phone's blowing up right beside me.
Go for it.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. Please don't forget to follow Tommy on Instagram and also on his Twitch channel. Please come and support him. We're gonna end it now. All the links are gonna be in the description. They're all in the description. Thank you very much, Tommy, and thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for making it all the way to the end. This is gonna be a 2-part thing because it is so long, but it is good. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that bell icon. Hit that like button and. Comment down below what you think, and like tell us if we suck or we're rock stars. So there you go. Thank you very much, ladies. Yeah.
Say they're good. Say they're good. They're good. Like them. Subscribe.
Give us that ego boost.
Be like me.
Yeah. Give us that ego boost. Thank you very much. Have a good night. Bye.
Thank you very much, Tom.